Please, Frieren, step on me. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Last week, I told people that after Uubel did that bind effect on Uubel, that we were gonna get a ton of fan art of Uubel being bound and inappropriate things. And now watch. This week, we're gonna get a ton of fan art of Frieren stepping on people. You know it's coming. You know it's coming. Episode 21 of Frieren Beyond Journeys In. What a fantastic episode. Another episode of Frieren being a, as I like to call it, a casual badass. I love it. I love it. But yes, we also got some insights into Serie. We had Denken, Richter, modern mages. And yes, we got to see what's going on with Stark this whole time. He's enjoying his time away from Fern. He no longer has his wife around. He's able to party hard. Anyways, yes, great episode. Let's just jump right into it. I was very curious about this because after I watched episode 20, I did my recording as I usually do. Then I went and checked the manga. And the manga did technically show a few panels that were in this episode. So they did kind of put off showing that Frieren had actually met Serie before. That's why I was doing all my assumptions in the last episode that, you know, Frieren had gone to Serie possibly through Flamme. Which, yes, in this episode, we do get that confirmation that, yes, Flamme was taught by Serie. That was her master. So that technically does make sense there that this very old, seemingly an elf, had taught Flamme. Flamme became this legendary mage, and then Flamme had passed on that knowledge to Frieren. Now, there's a lot of emphasis in this little backstory here that it seems like at some point Serie was going to try to defeat the Demon King. Maybe didn't do it, failed to do it, because yes, Flamme brings Frieren, and Serie says, "Oh, wow. I like this girl. She looks like she's really powerful. She's an elf, all that kind of stuff. What spell do you want?" And Frieren, in response to this, says, "I don't want any spells." the joy is in finding it, which I did like that tie-in with Denken. Denken and Frieren both have that same mentality of the joy of magic is seeking it out, searching for it, the discovery of it. That is the joy. The journey is essentially what you like, not the destination, which is getting the spell itself. Whereas Serie is going, "What do you want? I can give you anything. I'll give you one spell. What do you want?" Frieren's like, "I don't want it. I want to go find it. That's my joy." But in response to this, Serie says, "Oh, never mind. She lacks burning ambition. I don't like her no more." It seems to be a lot of emphasis that Serie likes to get the knowledge. So Serie likes the destination. And in response to Frieren, doesn't like that she just wants to seek it out, wants to go find it, wants that journey. No, you want that knowledge. That's the important thing. You want all this knowledge. If any chance you can get it, take it. Frieren doesn't have that mentality. And in response to that, it says, "Well, I don't like her no more." And it's kind of odd to hear Frieren say something like that because you would think that the opportunity to get any spell, that's great. But it does seem like she does enjoy the journey, which is sort of a contrast to what she once was, what she becomes in order to journey with Himmel and all them, which is to isolate herself, and then eventually to relearn how to essentially meet other people and make experiences and memories. But in response, Flamme says she'll defeat the Demon Lord. She will lead us to peace. Now, the interesting thing that she kind of points out here is that you'll never defeat the Demon Lord, just like me. We'll never defeat the Demon King because we seek battle. Even includes herself in that whole scenario. But Frieren, she's from a world of peace. She's of a peaceful era. And I think that possibly ties in with what Flamme basically designed Frieren to be. Again, the way that Flamme was doing it, and it seems like she had failed it, and it seems like she's applying that to Serie as well, that we seek the battle, and thus we are glory seekers, basically, and thus there'll be knowledge of us, and when we go there, we're going to lose. Whereas the whole idea of Frieren herself is that she's been designing her to be hidden, to be unknown, so that when she gets to the Demon King, she'll be a nobody, and then she can blast and take him out. That was the whole idea of Frieren as a whole in her isolation from other people, was that Flamme told her, do not make a name for yourself. Do not be known as Frieren. Do not be this legendary hero. You just go there, hide your mana, and then when you get there, catch them off guard. It's a dirty way of fighting, but it is the way to win. And again, I'm kind of curious how that kind of applies to Serie. Does Serie even care about taking down the Demon King? I can make my assumptions, and I just did, but I'm kind of curious how that'll kind of play that out going forward. How's that going to be explained? Now, to Serie herself, the curious question mark that I've had is, why is she doing this first-class thing? It seems to be implying here that she is just trying to pull in people that are extremely skilled in order to see new things. It seems, again, Serie is a seeker of knowledge, and it seems like she's letting it come to her. Unlike Frieren, who's seeking it out, Serie is wanting it to come to her. Now, my prediction in the last episode was that I was thinking that this whole thing was to essentially find Frieren. Like, Serie had created this whole restriction and the first class system just to bring in Frieren. But it doesn't seem like that's implying it in this episode, because it does seem like Serie does know that Frieren's there, but doesn't go jumping out there to go see Frieren. Like, unless in the next episode, suddenly Serie runs into Frieren and goes, "There you are, I found you. You came to the test, good thing, let's talk," or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I think Serie is purposely trying to find the best of the best, is looking for the strongest of mages to bestow them knowledge and additionally to see new things from them. So I'll be curious to see how that kind of plays out, but for now, seems like we're left at. I did like the whole thing with the breaking of the barrier and how, yes, Frieren the entire time has been examining this barrier. And the moment that she goes to break it, you have the two examinees are over there kind of going, "Yeah, that's not going to happen." Gunno is like, "No, there's no way. There's no person in this world that can possibly be stronger than Serie." And sure enough, again, Frieren just casually badass destroys it. And he's like, "Wait, what? That can't happen." And yes, that kind of triggers over to Serie, who's like, "It's been 1,000 years, and this is how you greet me." But it's interesting that Serie at that moment says, "This is why I can't retire. This is why I can't give up magic. This is why I can't just disappear and go away. Somebody like you will flip the world on its head. You will turn the world upside down." It's odd that they, for two cases, said that same comment. Gunno says, "Nobody can do that. Anybody that destroys that barrier is turning the world on its head." And then you have Serie over here, it says the same exact thing. You turn the world on its head. I'm kind of curious of what that meaning is. It's probably more in the idea of everything that we do know, everything that Serie knows about this barrier, everything that Serie knows about the world, everything that Gunno knows about Serie is this. I've set in my mind, cemented in my mind that this is how it is. Serie is the strongest. And then Frieren breaks it. Okay, that's not normal. It was interesting that in the manga, because I thought this little segment right here was a little bit oddly worded. In the manga specifically, Gunno doesn't say anything like that. Or I think he does, or maybe later on. But in the first moment where Sense says that somebody's been examining the barrier, Gunno in response in the manga says that if somebody destroys the barrier, then we'll go looking for birds. It's basically saying, not going to happen, and he's basically putting a wager on it. If somebody actually breaks the barrier, I'll go look for birds. We'll go hunt down birds. And that could be the idea that, yes, technically with the barrier gone, those birds in there could be leaving. But it could also be this idea that it's just not going to happen. It's just never going to happen. But anyways, yes, let's get into the actual fights themselves. I guess the first one being Frieren and Denken, which was, again, so freaking great. Denken, again, I like that little brief moment of the both of them kind of seeing things similar. But then they start to go, basically go all out. Denken's trying to realize at some point that I'm going to run out of mana. I got to take this down quickly. Does the whole flame tornado thing. And is shocked because Frieren, despite the fact that she is being barraged by him, is still able to get counterattacks in. So it kind of shows that idea that she's so good at defending herself while also, sending her own attacks forward. And yes, pointing out once again, defeated by somebody using just basic magics. He's like, it's like I'm a trainee doing a trainee kind of session because you're just basically using basic attacks. I did like the fact that after Frieren beats Denken, he just freaking kicks him and starts stepping on him. I could just see all of the fans of Frieren going, "Yes, please step on me." There's going to be art of it. We're going to have Frieren stepping on people. But I did like the whole kind of follow-up scene with him essentially, yes, defeated, and not wanting to say where Lawine is, and then trying to tell Lawine, "Don't come out here. Don't worry about it. She's not going to kill me. She's bluffing." And Frieren's over there like, "Oh, that sucks. I guess I'm going to have to kill you." And Lawine plays into it. Poor Lawine's like, "No, I don't want you to." She says later on that it wouldn't have been lethal, but you would have been injured, and she didn't want that. She went out of her way in order to see if she can get Denken out of there, and Frieren was waiting for her. Just, gotcha. It was interesting to see that Frieren, after the fight and catching Lawine, used a binding ability. And there's so much emphasis on the idea of how unique binding itself is. The idea that she has a binding spell for birds, specifically birds. And yet Uubel over here is special in the idea that he's able to bind a person, but he always has to see them. And then you have Frieren over here, she literally binds them and walks away. And the bind stays. It's a very high-skilled bind that they can't easily break through. Well, they technically break through it by busting the tree down. I am curious if it's not necessarily a bind for people or a bind in general, but a bind for trees. I could totally see that being the case, that it's not necessarily a binding spell for binding people, but it binds trees, and they just happen to be on a tree. Now let's cut over to Lawine and Kanne fighting Richter. This was so cool. I was very scared that this fight was going to end with Richter basically pushing the two girls' faces in the mud and him beating them. I really wanted them to win. I really wanted them to win after all the things that he was talking about in the fight. But what was really interesting in this fight is, yes, obviously Lawine and Kanne are just not doing well. Obviously, Kanne doesn't have any water to work with, so she's pretty much useless. All she's able to do, and it's great that she moves into a defensive role. If I don't have water to work with, I'll be the one that protects Lawine. Lawine is able to freeze things. She's still able to do her attacks because she's able to manifest ice from nothing, whereas Kanne specifically cannot manifest water. So I like that kind of shift into roles. The two of them work so well together because they kind of accent each other and they work on each other's weaknesses. But yes, Richter is pummeling them. Lawine makes a comment about how he's using too much mana. And isn't that a bad thing? This is where he gives a history lesson. And this is where this is the kind of stuff that I absolutely eat up because it kind of expands the world itself. And what I really like about this is it essentially solidifies something that we can observe in the world itself. And the idea that not entirely, but there is a consistency there here that the writer is having with magic and showing that there is a evolution of how people in modern times versus the old times view magic itself. Richter kind of points out the idea that the old people are still teaching the younger how to essentially drag out a fight, be on the defensive until, one side runs out. But that means that they're only using this one type of shield that was created in response to this attack, which is the shield, the barrier that they all use. But he specifically points out that it's designed to essentially be high resistant to magic itself, not specifically physical. And the idea of trying to advance that barrier to the point that it could be strong against physical takes too much time. So they're not quite there yet, or in actuality, every time they attempt to do it, it takes too long to create. So he's specifically saying, well, because it works so well against what you would normally need physical for, which is, monsters or just warriors, they're not advancing it. Thus, most modern people these days are focusing on actually controlling highly physical objects. So there's a reason why there's a trend for modern magics and modern attacks to focus on controlling physical objects. So the idea is to overwhelm them. He says something to the effect of, I'll let you figure out the rest. He's essentially saying that modern mages are crafting magic specifically to kill other mages. Now, I don't know how that's going to go in turn. It may be in the idea that because magic has gotten so strong that other mages are going to have to counter each other. Or it could be an idea of just not wanting other mages to overcome them, that they're creating magic specifically to kill other mages. It is kind of creating this idea that despite the fact that in the world, we noticed when they first came to this town, mages are becoming less and less. Ever since the days of the Demon King, there's less mages. But it seems like those mages are being concerned about other mages, or possibly maybe a Demon King or some other force that's coming out, the demons themselves. So it's interesting that he's pointing out specifically, I've designed my magic specifically to counter your defenses, the defenses of a mage. And again, like I said, I like that consistency because look at most all the younger mages in this entire event. You have Lawine seems to be speed, and it seemed like there's indication that she could be a physical fighter, which we might see more in the next exam. Denken, very old. He's using mostly just magic, wind and fire and stuff like that. Jump back to a younger one, Ere. She's using mostly rocks, physical objects. But again, it seemed like she was so focused on a barrage and large volume that she was not able to overcome Fern. Lawine and Kanne, again, he was pointing out these old folks were teaching you wrong. They were mostly just magic, water and ice. Again, I like that consistency. Now, I think the only one that's an oddball is probably Uubel, which we haven't seen too much of her. She was able to do some sort of slicing attack, but we don't really know exactly what she was doing. And again, she had a physical staff, something that she was swiping at. So she had some sort of physical attack. Again, I like the fact that there's a consistency here in the writing that it seems like either the old or those taught by the old are focusing on specifically magic or non-physical magic. But anyways, they were getting their butt kicked. I hated it. But he didn't kill them. I like the fact that when he gets up close to them, Lawine's like, you're getting really close. You know that a body is made of a lot of water. And he's like, yeah, but you have to imagine it. So they did give a little bit of insight into the idea that magic itself is something you have to envision. You have to imagine it. You have to know what it would do, how it would look in order for you to use it. So she was bluffing. Obviously, Lawine was bluffing in the idea that she thinks that Kanne can control the water within her, or Lawine could possibly freeze it. But he's like, you don't even know where it's at. You don't know how it's structured. It would never work. So he's not giving into that bluff. But then she points out, what are you afraid of? What are you so afraid of? He's like, you better behave yourselves. I'm only supposed to babysit you guys. But he did kind of give a little bit of a sense here that Richter didn't really want to kill them, but he was being extremely cautious. Lawine was pointing out specifically that you came here, you brought us here, even though you act like you want to fight, you brought us here because you wanted to keep Kanne away from water. He was afraid of Kanne, and we kind of see that later on when the barrier's broken, the water comes down, Kanne beats the crap out of him by dropping a massive water on him, and he's like, this is why I don't like water mages. Completely gets washed out over to Denken, who actually, it's so funny because they do kind of imply it, but he was being washed by, and Denken grabbed him with his legs. Sorry about that. It was inevitable. It was a funny little kind of end there. But yes, I did like Frieren just being amazing. It's okay. They're going to be fine. I know Lawine and Kanne is going to be fine. I figured out this barrier thing, blast the thing, shatters it open. It was fantastic. And Denken asks him, why did you break the barrier? I felt bad for Kanne. Specifically says, anybody, including herself, Frieren says this, anybody, including herself, would not want to fight a water mage in rain. Frieren herself here is saying, I couldn't beat Kanne. That's how powerful the idea of somebody that is a water mage that's experienced, seemingly like Kanne, is when, yes, you're controlling water and there's massive amounts of it everywhere. Which, yes, is indicated by the idea that she created this massive ball of water that you can't even avoid. Yeah, and like how Lawine kind of points that out, the idea that this is why you were afraid. This is exactly what you were talking about. A mass of physical object that you can't create a barrier for. But yeah, the aftermath of everything, we have everybody pretty much getting their birds. Yes, Denken and Lawine and Richter, they end up finding somebody. I did like that aspect of Richter being like, we're done. We lost. It's over. We're out of mana. But then Denken says to be an Imperial Mage, essentially, you can't give up. Like, we have to fight. Even if we're out of mana, we're going to go find something. To the very end, we're going to push. And sure enough, they end up finding two people that have lost their third member, but they're not wanting to give up their bird. He's like, I wouldn't negotiate either. It wouldn't feel right. And so, yes, Denken goes out there, takes off his cloak. You're a man, aren't you? Step up. You're out of mana. I'm out of mana. Let's duke it out. I love that. That was great. It was a nice little moment of really liking Denken. I think the very first statement that kind of connected him to Frieren and this very last moment is what really kind of sold Denken for me. It was also interesting how Lawine questioned Denken at some point. Why are you trying to become a first-class mage when you have all this stuff? You have wealth, you have status and everything. Why would you want this? And he said that I want to go to the north. My hometown is in the northern area, and I can't go there unless I'm first class. That doesn't make much sense because they did imply, or Frieren implied, that you can hire a first class. It just costs a lot of money. And if Denken has a lot of money, he can hire somebody to go up there and see a grave. So I don't know if that's a truth there or whatever. It kind of plays against all of my thoughts about why he wanted to become a first class, because he wanted to change the system itself. But it would explain why he doesn't like the system, because he can't just go see his family. What the hell? We had a brief scene with Uubel, Frieren, and Land where Uubel was mad about the fact that Frieren busted the barrier and now we're all wet, and talking about how Frieren uses basic magic and it's weird. And Fern's like, take that out with my master. And then gets to talk about different spells, and Fern's like, yeah, I have an ability to see through clothes. And Uubel goes over there and hides. I'm not going to use it. Which did technically bring up the conversation from Land that, yes, hey, we're going to be competing against each other next round, so don't reveal all of your abilities. Which kind of seemed stupid. Like, he wouldn't allow it to happen, which I guess it kind of plays into Land kind of liking the two of them and wanting to inform them of that, but maybe he's tsundere. But yeah, and that all wraps up with 6 parties passing. A nice little kind of nod between Frieren and Frieren. They both made it. And yes, we got a little shot of Stark being happy that he doesn't have his mom around, his wife around to yell at him all the time. But yeah, really fantastic episode. Really enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get on my content and news reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate it, but it does. And y'all take care.